Well, America's slow road to recovery is looking like it has more potholes than paved paths these days. The Associated Press released a survey saying as much this week when it found that 4 out of 5 adults struggle with joblessness, near poverty, or reliance on welfare programs for at least part of their lives. Here's what else it discovered. The country's poor remains at a record high with 46.2 million people, or 15% of the population, living below the poverty level. And if you're wondering what that poverty level is, it means that they have an income for a family of 4 of less than $23,000 a year. And this issue is not confined to minorities. According to the survey, 76% of white Americans will experience some sort of economic insecurity by age 60. Now, of the 46 million living below that poverty line at the moment, almost half, or 19 million, are white. Here to help me break down the numbers in greater detail, RT producer Rachel Kurzius and Prime Interest host Bob English join me now.
Hey there.
Bob, I thought we were on the road to recovery. What's going on?
Why would you think that?
I don't know. President Obama said so, Bob.
Okay, some of the statistics look good, but it's kind of a mixed bag, and here's why. You look at unemployment statistics, and if you're out of a job for as long as a month, you don't get counted in them. And the jobs that we're seeing today are of vastly lower quality than they were before. We're looking at jobs increases in retail sector, in the hospitality sectors, and a lot of this is just part-time work. So the quality of jobs is not what it used to be. And then the actual full-time paying jobs are in construction, and we're seeing another manipulated housing boom. Mortgage rates are rising, and we're going to have a fall in that sector as well. So it's not going to look pretty, I would say, a year out from now.
Those are some very ominous predictions, Bob.
And just to add to that, I think it's important to think that we are on the road to some sort of recovery, but the idea that the recovery we're looking at is going to be the same as something we had in the past is kind of misleading. When people have new jobs, these jobs, as Bob said, are going to be in manufacturing, fast food work, things of that nature. And you can sense even the fact that fast food workers have risen in their median age. It shows that this is no longer a stepping stone to a job for teenagers. This is now full-term employment for people who just don't have other options.
Exactly.
Rachel, can you break down some of these statistics a little bit more depth for our viewers? There's obviously a lot of them in this survey.
Yeah, there definitely are. And I think that, as you said, the most eye-catching one, that 4 out of 5 Americans are on the brink of poverty, is one that I think deserves a lot of our attention, especially if you think about what the definition of near poverty means here, right? We're talking about people who have experienced unemployment, have a year or more of government reliance for things like food stamps or something like that, or have an income below 150% of the poverty line. Yeah. So that's a pretty wide definition that we're talking about.
I just want to add one thing to that, because it says experiencing unemployment at some time during their working lives. I think that's just kind of to generate headline statistics. Things are bad enough. You don't need to goose it with those kinds of broad numbers.
But at the same time, when people are facing unemployment, that is being on the brink. I mean, there's no necessary understanding that when you lose a job that you're going to be getting another one. So even though it may be, a headline catching statistic, at the same time, it's very real for 4/5 of Americans at some point in their lives.
Certainly.
And it's a very scary reality for those 4/5 of Americans, or 4 out of 5. Now, Bob, you had talked about it a little bit more, but the Help Wanted Index is at a record high. So what about these unemployment people going and filling these jobs? Why is it so hard for employers to find employees and for unemployed people to find these jobs and kind of make it work?
Well, I always question the statistics in the first place, but a lot of people are kind of stuck where they are because they're stuck in their homes. And why is that? Because they're underwater in them. People owe more on their homes than they're actually worth, and that creates a situation where labor is not mobile. That could be one possible explanation.
Now, John Stossel of Fox News Network said that if Americans could get the same amount off of an unemployment check that they can working a low-wage job, then they'll often choose not to take up that low-wage job. Do you think that's the case?
I think there's a bit of decision there. People have a lot of options, and there's government help, and they can simply take the decision to take a government check. We had an extension, a record extension of unemployment benefits, and I think that conditioned the population that, just rely on Uncle Sam for the check, not necessarily on McDonald's.
I wouldn't say that it's necessarily conditioning the population in any way. I think that there are a lot of studies that show that people would prefer to be working rather than be on the government dole. But as you said, there are people who are underwater in their homes, meaning they owe more in their debt than their home is worth, so they can't really sell. Another thing is that the jobs that people are looking for are often very different than the jobs that people are advertising as jobs that need employees. So I think it might also be a question of education.
Well, and let's also play with the term near poverty. Now, this article said that 80% of Americans are facing near poverty. Rachel, what do you make of that term, near poverty?
Well, I do think that it's very broad. I think that all of us know a lot of people in our lives who have been unemployed for some part of their working
Especially
lives.
the younger generation.
Certainly, and I think that, you know, as there are a lot of people who don't really have the opportunity to get jobs when they're younger. For instance, like these teenage jobs are now going to people in their mid-20s, and it kind of shifts upward, that there is a lost generation of people who are in their 20s right now who haven't had this meaningful opportunity to be gainfully employed. And now the question is, why would you employ them when you can employ a fresh upstart straight out of college? So there are people who are getting lost in the shuffle here.
And Bob, we just
Sure.
have a minute left, so I'm going to give you the last word here.
All right.
What should we make of the difference between the numbers that this survey shows and the economic census data that we've seen?
I think the economic census data is just a little bit older, so what we're seeing in this newer report is reflecting a newer reality. And like I said, I think this report is a little bit playing up the unemployment. It's a little bit broad, but in general, the census data gives us a lot of information and insight. And if you look at the census data itself, it's not that great either.
All right, Prime Interest host Bob English
Thank you.
and RT producer Rachel Kurzius. Thank you so much.